Hello, everyone. Here's your weather hazard briefing for the last Friday here in April the 28th. We begin our extended period of warm conditions across the area, and we're just talking some places hitting 80 or higher over the weekend and in the early part of next week, especially through Monday. Obviously, that increases our snowmelt and runoff across the area. We've been talking about a potential rain on snow event for middle elevations or mid elevations, and it looks like it's holding off now until later next week. Until then, it's dry through the most of the weekend, maybe a few showers later Sunday, and maybe a few showers through the middle part of next week, but that is certainly not a guarantee across our area. We are watching high pressure building across the eastern Pacific and the coast, the west coast here. That shifts over the area through the weekend. We've been talking about an area of low pressure. The one that is currently off across portions of the eastern Pacific, that's not the area of low pressure we're worried about. There's a trough off to the west spinning off the Aleutians, and that is actually going to absorb this low. And then that's the low that's going to end up setting up shop off the coast as we head through the early and middle part of next week. Our weather risk outlook, we continue to advertise some minor risks over much of the area today. We do have our flood warning for the Pocatello, the Port Neuf River at Pocatello. That continues on into next week. Our greatest concern will be over our higher elevations, especially over the southern and eastern highlands, the southeast highlands, portions of the central mountains. That's where we have our aerial flood watch that's in effect well into next week across the area. So how has this pattern been shaping up? How's it going to look? So we're going to step back in time here and then go forward. By the weekend, by Sunday, don't worry about the time here. 0Z Monday equates to 6 p.m. So anytime you see any of our weather graphics, anything we put out there that has a Z time, that is Zulu time. For us locally, that's 6 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. High pressure overhead for us going into Sunday afternoon. And you'll notice as we go into next week, Monday afternoon, low pressure developing along the coast or just off the coast. And by the time we get to Tuesday, you'll notice that's setting along the coast or just off the coast. All of the models, all of these forecasts that we're looking at are showing that with the ridge either right on us or just to our east. That brings southerly flow into our area. And we talked about maybe a few little pushes of moisture, just enough for some clouds and a few showers. That is certainly through starting later Sunday, Monday, and obviously into Tuesday. Now, when we talk about this particular cluster forecast page, what this looks at, it takes all of the forecasts and kind of puts them into the four most likely scenarios that we may see the overall pattern shaping up over the region. So you'll see by Tuesday afternoon, pretty much all the forecasts have a closed low, a developing strong closed low either along the coast or off the coast by Tuesday afternoon. Going to Wednesday afternoon, you'll notice a lot of these are trying to pull this low offshore even more. The farther west this goes, this keeps that potential of that better chance of rain, the rain on snow event, away from us. Now, you'll notice there's about a 30%. There's a 30% out of 100% of these forecasts. There's about 30% of these this cluster forecasting showing up here that is actually keeping that low closer to the coast. Now we go into Thursday afternoon. This is where things we talk about, certainty, uncertainty. You'll notice if you look here, there's about 55 to 60% of these cluster forecasts, the cluster forecasting, showing that low remains along the coast. You'll notice the rest of the forecasts are starting to at least take a wave, this initial wave, lifting it northeast towards us by Thursday afternoon, while another low develops offshore. So what this is showing is that, yes, there is the potential for the low to stay offshore, but there's also an increasing potential, at least going into Thursday and maybe into Friday, that increasing chance of rain and that rain on snow event for us across the area. So we've been talking about these warmer temperatures coming our way. Looking at the probability of reaching a certain threshold for temperatures, we're going to start for this afternoon. The potential of hitting 70 degrees is generally about 50% or higher. That's some of these oranges, this red orange all the way up to yellow, which is basically a certainty, a 100% chance of that happening. Basically, the Magic Valley down into the South Hills and the Albion Mountains, the lower elevations, there's a decent shot of hitting 70 this afternoon. We go into Saturday. That really is a likelihood off across the Magic Valley into the south. And we're talking about a 50% chance or better, 60, 70% chance as you head into the lower Snake Plain up towards Blackfoot. Into the upper Snake Plain, we're talking about a 50 to 60% chance. Even up towards Chalice, there's a pretty good likelihood. We're talking 70% plus. Other areas, it's warmer, but that's not necessarily the threshold we're going to hit for Thursday, for 70 degrees on Saturday. It really increases on Sunday all the way up into the upper Snake Plain, around the Chalice area, even up in the Stanley Basin. We're talking 50, 60% in a few spots up there. Also down across, down towards Malad, also our into the Cache Valley, down towards McCammon as well. Monday, that even grows a little bit more, especially across the Snake Plain and across the southeast highlands and on up into portions of the Central Mountains. Then it starts to back off a little bit on Tuesday, but still, that's the potential of seeing 70 degrees. We're going to go back here and we're going to look at the potential of hitting 80 degrees across the same areas as we go into through the same period. So for 80 degrees, not expecting that today. For tomorrow, we're going to get close, especially down towards Malta, Oakley. We're talking over 60% chance, around Burley, a 40 to 50% chance. And of course, that chance increases once you get back into the Treasure Valley. That's for Saturday. For Sunday, we're talking once you get into the portions of the lower Snake Plain, a 50 to 60% chance. Pretty much likely down towards the Raft River area, Malta, down Burley, Twin Falls, down towards Oakley as well. Down towards south of Malad, we're talking about a 50 to 60% chance in those areas for Sunday. Monday, it starts to grow. We're down towards Malad. We're talking over 70%. Pretty much a lock from American Falls back to the west towards Burley, down towards Malta, also down towards Oakley as well. Once you get up into the upper Snake Plain, that potential is around 20 to 40% chance. Certainly not zero, that's for sure. And then in Tuesday, it backs off a little bit, with still some areas seeing a greater than 50% chance of seeing temperatures over 80 degrees for Tuesday afternoon. So what is our most likely forecast looking like at this point for those days? For this afternoon, 60s and 70s in the lower elevations, low to mid 70s once you get into the Magic Valley. Chalice 70, low 60s for Stanley. Staying in the 40s and 50s down towards the Bear Lake area, some of the southeast highlands, just all that snowpack down there. We're not getting the full warmth just yet with this pattern come across that area. And the higher elevations up towards Bora and those areas sitting in the 40s for this afternoon. For Saturday, many areas still sitting below freezing in the morning, especially where we have the increased snowpack over the southeast corner, also up into the Island Park area. Otherwise, near 30 in Stanley, 30s to low 40s over the rest of the area for overnight lows. For tomorrow afternoon, more 70s pushing into the area. We talked about that potential near 80 down towards Burley, low 80s for Oakley, Twin, Shoshone as well. Stanley pushing into the mid-60s. We might finally break 60 across portions of the Bear Lake area tomorrow afternoon in those areas, near 70 in Driggs. The highest elevations we're talking up around Bora, afternoon highs actually hitting right around 50 degrees for Sunday. Monday, you can see the temperatures continue to warm, even some lows in the low to mid-50s from Pocatello south and west. Chalice in the 40s, Stanley right at freezing as well. But look at the temperatures. We're talking more mid-80s from Pocatello, low to mid-80s, Pocatello west and south. Mid-60s across the southeast corner near 70 at Island Park. Even 70 in the Stanley Basin for Monday afternoon. And we're going to drop it off a couple of degrees, but still very, very warm once we get into Tuesday afternoon in those areas. So we've got some various flood products out there for going right now. We don't have anything out for the Bear River area, but you'll notice the forecast starting to push towards minor flood stage, or at least action stage, along the Bear River. This is the gauge that's located near the Wyoming-Idaho border. This is heading into the early part of next week. At Pescadero, we're approaching action stage, the low end of action stage, the early part of next week. And down across the Idaho-Utah border, we're definitely going to push towards action stage once we get towards the early and middle part of next week. We also have our headlines out for the Pocatello, or the Port Neuf River at Pocatello, and this is a little bit different look. The forecast here, this dotted line here, that's indicating that by the weekend, we're already at action stage. Heading into the weekend, we're going to be into minor flood stage. We're going to be hitting moderate flood stage once we get into the early part of next week, and there's a 98% chance we're going to hit the moderate flood stage. And you'll notice most of the forecast out through 10 days keeps it in that moderate flood category. And just kind of pushing this out there. We don't want to get anyone necessarily, just the idea, we still have the potential, especially depending on how much rain we get, we could be hitting major flood stage across for this particular gauge, the Port Neuf River at Pocatello. Now, this does not mean major flooding within all of the city of Pocatello. We're not talking about the area where the concrete channel is. We're talking a lot of this flooding occurring to the north and obviously to the south of that as well. For Topaz, you'll notice we're already pushing into action stage. It's going to take a while, the early part of next week. I mean, pretty much a given 98% chance we're going to hit minor flood stage, and it stays there through the 10-day period for that. The other gauge we're watching is the Big Wood River at Haley. You'll notice that we're pushing towards action stage. We pretty much stay action to minor flood stage, and once we get out through the middle part of next week, like I said, most of the forecast, this is kind of one of those ensemble forecasts. It looks at all the different potential flows, looking at potential temperatures, the potential for precipitation falling as well. And that pretty much stays in the minor flood stage as well. But there's still about a 35% chance we could be pushing moderate flood stage by the time we get to the middle and end of next week. So certainly we've got a lot on our plate coming over the next several days. So once again, warm weather's coming. Some of us are going to see more 80s over the weekend or the early part of next week. Maybe a few showers before we have our next rain or snow event. It looked like it was going to be early next week. At this point, I think it's going to hold off at least till the end of next week. Have a great Friday. Have a great day. And certainly, if you're heading out there, be safe, everyone.